All right, so hello, my name is Brandon, and here with me is Sandy and Courtney, and today we're going to be talking about the Suprema crisis. Next slide. So operations and supply chain management is an aspect of business that is often overlooked for the fancier parts, but in reality, as you will soon see, this component is crucial to the company's success. Chassis Co., the company that manufactures automobile parts, would have benefited greatly from a more effective supply chain management in 2004, when their relationship with their business partner, Toyota Motor Manufacturing of Macon, Georgia, was almost at its breaking point. You see, as a result of several issues, chiefly miscommunication and a lack of cohesion, Chassis Co. was burning out employees and hemorrhaging money due to lack of capacity and therefore the subsequent overload. And one of the main issues was that Chassis Co. Had demonstrated relative success with previous launches, and this led to Toyota to overestimate Chassis Co.'s ability and thereby increasing their workload and subsequently fracture their supply chain. With that, I'm going to let Courtney go into more detail.
Okay, so I'm just going to give y'all a little background and then just hop right into it. In the mid-1990s, Toyota opened the Toyota Motor Manufacturing Macon, Georgia, what Brandon was just speaking about. It was an automotive assembly plant where the Toyota Suprema was built. This plant won many quality awards over the years while Toyota expanded in growth, profits, and customer satisfaction, all attributed to its Toyota production system. The Toyota production system was adopted in the 1950s. That consisted of two concepts here. It's called Jidoka, which is translated as automation with a human touch, which meant when a problem occurred, the equipment stopped immediately, preventing defective products from being produced. Another concept that was part of the Toyota production system is a concept called just in time, which is referred to each process producing what was needed by the next process in a continuous flow. So therefore only making what is needed when it is needed and in the amount needed. And the 1997 Suprema launch. In 1993, when planning the production for the 1997 Suprema, Toyota planned to outsource building of the rear suspension cradle to a North American supplier instead of continuing to build it internally. As stated earlier, the Suprema was built at the Toyota Motor Manufacturing's in Macon, Georgia plant. However, it lacked space and the rear suspension cradles being built was a difficult process that required heavy parts and resource intensive. So Toyota hired Chassis Company to make the Suprema's rear suspension. Chassis Co. had some struggles during the development phase, but was receptive in learning the Toyota way. Toyota also transferred a production manager from the Japan site for an entire year to aid in showing the Toyota way and problem solving to Chassis Co. Chassis Co. also had quality issues arise, but was able to mitigate the problems and get it under control. In 2002, Chassis Co. was awarded a quality reward, as stated, and recognized for innovative work in the application of the Toyota production system to their inventory management. Also, Toyota simplified the cradle builds with the parts first being tuned and stamped in Japan, then being shipped to the Macon factory where they were kitted and then shipped to Chassis Co. in Athens to improve welding quality. The 1999 Responsa launch was Chassis Co. was successful in implementing the Toyota production system as stated in the 1997 project, which prompted Toyota to work with them again for the 1999 launch. Chassis Co. opened a new plant in St. Louis, Missouri, and for this particular car, the manufacturing involved more automation, and which included 50 new robots, also increasing the need for tuning. Nevertheless, the launch was successful and led Toyota to give Chassis Co. another project, which was a 2003 Suprema, in which they let Chassis Co. do the entire project management. The 2003 Suprema launch differed in the previous launches because now Chassico was responsible for the project management, but soon they learned they did not have the capabilities or resources to do so. More automation in the welding processes was needed for the increase in parts and complexity for the 2003 model. Because of the automated robots, no closed loop feedback system existed to help identify the source of defects. The quality of parts were compromised because Chassico accepted low bids from suppliers, some that had not ever made Toyota or automated parts to meet the targeted prices that Toyota set for the rear suspension cradles. However, Chassico failed to communicate to Toyota on these unrealistic price requirements. And despite the production rate at only 60% target, however, the launch was on schedule. So after the 2003 Suprema launch, Chassico still continued to unsuccessfully meet Toyota's production demand and targeted prices. Over the next year, overtime increased, high downtime due to supplies not producing at required rates, poor parts quality, and high scrap rates. Chassico did not practice standardized work as in the past, which included the lack of a defect system and supplier inspection system. Bernstein, who was the director of production control for the Mancoon, Georgia plant, visited the Chassico Athens plant twice a week to aid in the identification and prioritization of problems to help the fix. And that was later in 2004. So first question, what are the main contributors of the crisis at Chassico's Athens plant in late 2004? So the main causes of the crisis at the Athens plant and Chassico's responsibility was Chassico took responsibility over project management of the 2003 Suprema with only technological support from Toyota without complete understanding of the TPS and JIT or having the capability and infrastructure to meet production requirements. They did not conduct audits on suppliers to identify any problems. They also failed to efficiently communicate with Toyota on unrealistic prices, current problems, which led to bigger ones that could not be easily fixed. Production rate was down, staff was burnt out, and amount of defects increased compared to previous year. And they did not practice standardized work, which included no feedback system or defect flow out control system. And there was also decreased staff and decreased resources. Toyota's responsibility in the matter, they placed high value on frequent and open communications and expected suppliers to alert Toyota personnel to problems very quickly so corrective action could be taken, but Toyota did not collaborate well enough with Chassico during the 2003 Suprema build. Toyota also failed to provide adequate resources and oversee the production, and they denied design requests from Chassico to simplify assembly processes because they stated it was the lowest cost, therefore this worsened the production time. Chassico lacked the proper staff for the project, and senior management employees were denied from Toyota. All right, and Brandon's going to take you on to the next questions.
Okay, so for the first part of the second question, we were addressing what Chassico's options are for resolving the crisis. So firstly, ending the crisis before it began would have probably been the easiest solution. It just kind of went out of control. Toyota was diligent when they were making their decisions in terms of who they were going to have partner with them, but they probably weren't diligent enough in their evaluation of Chassico and knowing where they were kind of deficient, because they really let a couple of things go that would have saved them some headache in the long run. I mean, ideally, they would have tried to find a company with a less of a strategy gap to their own, or they would have bridged the gap that was already there before it became a problem. One of the things was that education was a major deficiency for Chassico. Toyota had already established their own practices, kind of, what she was talking about with JIT and TPS. Chassico obviously practiced neither. And then on top of that, there was really an issue with communication with Chassico and really between the two. That would have probably been the best solution if they would have had better communication from the start. And then obviously at this point in 2004, if they would start having better communication, they could probably get out of the hole they're in. Because in reality, without proper communication, none of the other solutions are going to matter. Education, strategical cohesion, and proper resource exchange are impossible when you don't have effective communication. So this is going to lead me to the second part of the question. You can hit next slide, which is what would you do if you were in charge? So given the solutions I mentioned previously, if in charge, the first order of business would probably be to establish effective and productive communication between the two companies. In this communication, the expectations between parties would have to clearly be discussed and explained to solidify accountability moving forward. Additionally, JIT would be implemented at Chassis Co. As it is their biggest internal issue due to their inability to store what they've been manufacturing. They're having a really hard time keeping with space. They're running out of space in their office area. But if that was impossible, if they couldn't move on to JIT, at the very least, Chassis Co. would have to be more thoroughly educated on Toyota's practices to clear the knowledge gap. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Sandy to close it out.
For the first part of our third question, the question was, what are Toyota's options for resolving the crisis? Here, Toyota has quite a few options, but some of the options include Toyota terminating Chassis Co. as a vendor and partnering with a new firm. So Toyota would probably have to ease into this termination so that they could avoid having any halting in their production in the meantime. Here, Toyota can go into business with another competitive company that is better qualified and has the capacity to take on the task previously given to Chassis Co. Another option would be to send an experienced Toyota employee to Chassis Co site to manage their operations and help to correct the errors which led to the defective product. The Toyota employee could remain on site for some time to help get things in order and also train the Chassis Co employees on how to better manage their operations. While at the site, the Toyota employee would see firsthand what Chassis Co lacks and could possibly help to pretty much smooth things out so that later everything could be ran appropriately. Also, in the meantime, I feel like Toyota could place a recall on the defective products and probably partner with another firm to replace the defective parts to ensure the quality products are given to the customers. At the end of the day, regardless who caused the error, Toyota's name is on it, and to protect their reputation, this would be ideal. Next slide. For the second question, asks, what would I do if I was in charge? So if I were in charge, I would issue a recall to start off with, again, because I want to protect my company's name and reputation so it doesn't get ruined. So I would do the recall, and then after that, I'd replace the defective products, and in the end, it'll be a win-win for both the company and our customers. Going forward, I would improve communication between my company and any vendors I work with. Setting ground rules would have helped here. Vendors should know when to let my company know that things aren't being managed as well as they had hoped. This would help to prevent future occurrences of this type of issue. I would also send a seasoned employee to Chassis Co to help manage their operations for at least a year. This is something that Toyota had done previously with the first release of the Suprema. So this could also have helped in this situation. If more time is needed than a year, I would keep an employee on site, at least until I know that the tasks that are placed on my vendor are able to be accomplished to the standard that I provide. Also, going forward, we could try the divide and conquer type of method. I feel like one of the main issues that arose with Chassis Co was that they got so many tasks placed on them all at once, even tasks that they weren't very familiar with. They had to handle things such as sourcing, inventory management, logistics, all at once. So going forward, I would try to incorporate other vendors who specialize in specific tasks and try to complete those tasks. So I would ensure that the vendors who get the tasks, certain tasks, have expertise in that area so that everything could be better managed. Next slide. So to conclude, key issues that arose in this case were Chasico taking on more than what they could handle, Chasico having inadequate space to take on the new project, Toyota's budget being difficult to work within. There's, of course, the lack of proper communication between the two firms, and Toyota assuming that Chasico could handle the extra responsibilities placed on them without first verifying that they could actually take on those tasks. So going forward, Toyota should ensure that the vendors that they work with are well equipped, trained, and qualified to take on the responsibilities placed on them. And that is all. Thank you for your time.